All right, now on Zero Block 30, we have WWE superstar Bobby Lashley. Bobby was in the Army, and he's done a bunch of other things involving veterans. Bobby, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
So we're actually talking on Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day to you. You're in England right now?
Yes. Well, we're in Scotland right now.
Oh, you're in Scotland right now. What's the difference, the vibe in the UK whenever you're talking about the wearing the poppies and things like that? Has there been anything in Europe that's really caught your attention that's different than what we do here in America?
As far as Veterans Day,
Right, like the wearing of the poppy, like the experiences just seem very different.
well, well, we just got here and we've been traveling around like from city to city. So, really haven't got to see too much of the vibes, just simply because it's been literally hotels and arenas and in front of crowds. So, I'm not really sure how the vibe is outside of here and how it's in the area.
All right, great. So when you were growing up, your dad was a drill sergeant. Was there anything about his whenever that prepared you whenever you went to boot camp just by being around your father?
Well, my dad always, my dad was big in discipline, and he always preached discipline. So when I went to boot camp, I was already prepared for it. See, I went to boot camp after I graduated college, and my dad graduated as a sergeant major when he actually got out. So he was a first sergeant, and then he went sergeant major, and then he retired. So I was already kind of prepared for the discipline, and then I did ROTC in high school, so I kind of knew what to expect going in, just to get prepared. And I think the biggest thing that I learned from my dad was just that is just the discipline, and whatever you go into it 100%.
Was there anything that caught you off guard, or whenever you graduated, did you respect your father a little bit more, like for what he went through?
Well, it's tough in the service, but that's just with every job. Um, you just have to have thick skin. You can't take everything personal. I mean, you have people that are over you, and they're going to tell you what to do. You have to follow orders, and that was one thing that you can you can understand, but then when you get there, it's something else that you have to kind of deal with on your own. So I respect my dad because my dad had to go through a lot, and he went through a lot at the time where it wasn't as PC and as comfortable it is now. He went through a time where it was like it was getting around the Vietnam War. My
Hmm.
dad was in, and I had three uncles that were in the service. Two of them were in the Marines, and one was in the Navy. So just being around all of those guys, they just it was just the way that they carried themselves. I mean, my dad always had his head up high and his shoulders up. You know, he walked like a man, he acted like a man, and he did things like a man, and that's what he taught me, and that's what my uncles taught me. So, and I knew that they got a lot of that from being in the service, because in the service, that's one thing that you have to do is soldier. Right? You have to be soldiering. So, you know, when you go in, they get you prepared for it, and basically turn you into a man.
Yeah, I imagine so. So whenever you're dealing with Vince and you're dealing with a lot of the other personalities, after coming from a military background, like I know my boss here is known for being a dick. Like he's just like constantly in people's faces. It makes a lot of people nervous. But because I have experience in the Marine Corps, that kind of shit didn't bother me. Do you think that being in the Army helped you deal with some of the big personalities there in the WWE?
Oh yeah, in the WWE and outside of the WWE, like I said before, you got to have thick skin. You can't get rattled. I mean, because people are going to give you a hard time no matter what. When you came in, when I came in originally, this was years back. Um, Everybody was real nervous about coming in because they were like, "Oh no, some of the guys that are already in there kind of give a hard time to some of the guys that are coming up," and that didn't bother me at all because nothing could have been worse than basic training. You know, I was already
Right.
prepared to have people attack me, go after me, make me do things that I don't want to do. So I'm completely comfortable. And even right now, some guys, you know, just being around guys and traveling and everything like that, you can, like, people like to joke. They like to talk, to tell jokes and joke on you and everything like that. And I just can't get rattled. I can't get rattled at all. And I think that's one thing that I can feel comfortable with, no matter what. And then just being with Vince, I mean, Vince doesn't really give you a hard time. Vince doesn't give you a hard time at all. He's a businessman. He's running a huge company. So just learning how to deal with him, and I think that that's one reason why Vince gave me an opportunity to come back, because he knows the person that I am. He knows the dedication, he knows the drive, and he knows, just being from a military background, he knows that I have integrity. So he keeps me on the show, and gives me an opportunity to be on TV and to represent the WWE.
So whenever you got to boot camp, I imagine if you're anything like, if the Army is anything like the Marine Corps, we would identify certain folks who looked the part. You definitely looked the part being a championship wrestler. With you coming in being in such good shape, did they give you extra shit? And they're like, we're going to break this dude?
Yes, at the beginning. I mean, I remember it was a quick story, like right at the beginning of boot camp, we're all sitting there right outside like the holding after we just checked in and everything. We just got to Fort Benning because I went to Fort Benning in infantry. And I remember we were all sitting on the side of the street. We were about to get in formation and head over into the barracks. And one of the drill sergeants, a little shorter guy, came over there and had that drill sergeant hat on, and he came to me. He saw me, and I knew that I was going to be a target from the beginning. And he went over to me, and he took his fingers, and he said, you know, with these three fingers, with like 2 pounds of pressure, I can just rip your ear right off of your head. And he goes down and he grabs my ear, and when he grabbed my ear, he felt the cauliflower ear, and then he just kind of like broke character for a second. He goes, "Did you wrestle?" And I just kind of shook my head up and down, because at that point I was a 3-time national champion.
Yeah, so you wrestled a little bit.
So I said, yes. At first it was like, yes, I did. And he was like, yes, you did. Sorry. Yes, Joe, sorry. Snapped back into it. But then afterwards he kind of pulled me aside and he kind of talked to me a little bit, and he found out my background. He goes, okay, this guy can go. And actually I set the record for the PT test when I was down there.
Oh shit!
For our whole deal. Like I ran. I think I did 120 push-ups in 2 minutes, 120 sit-ups in 2 minutes, and then I ran my 2 mile in, I think it was 10:30.
Now, were they all good, solid push-ups, or were you faking the funk, cheating a little bit?
Man, I do everything 100%. This is chest to ground, and of course, with those guys, they didn't want to see you succeed, so they were down there like checking on you just to make sure that if anything was not completely all the way up and all the way extended, they weren't counting it. They were 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. I mean, so
yeah, and I bet the fat PFC that was there from Texas or something like this motherfucker, man.
Yeah, he just don't want you to succeed, but at the same time, you're doing it for their platoon, their squad, or whatever like that. So they want good numbers, but they still want to give you a hard time.
So when did they identify you to go on like the Army wrestling team?
Well, it was kind of it was a touchy one. So I came out of college, I graduated college, and then I was kind of unsure as to what I was going to do. I mean, the military was something that could have helped me out paying off student loans, and I did want to serve anyway. But the wrestling coach contacted me before I even enlisted, and he said, "Look, we want to get you into WCAT, World Class Athlete Program."
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, great. What do I need to do?" And he said, "Well, you have to go to MEPS, take the test, and you have to go to the basic training." And I said, "Okay." He said, "But however, when you come into the service, you're a soldier first. So you still have to make the team." So I went in knowing that I was going to go for that program, but there was no guarantee that I was going to stay in that program. There was no guarantee that I was getting to that program. So when I was going in saying, okay, I'm going into the service, and then whether or not I make the team, I'm okay with it, because if I don't, then I'll spend my time in. If I do, then that'll be my job. And luckily I was able to get onto the team and make the team, and then
because you kind of thought that was going to catapult you to the Summer Olympics, right? Because you had won 3 consecutive national championships in college, and then you were on the Army team, and you were on track to go to the Olympic Games, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what the World Class Athlete Program is for. It's for athletes that have the ability to make the Olympic team. If you are just a good wrestler or a good whatever it is, track or whatever, boxing, then sure, you can possibly make it on the team, and that might be like a part-time thing that you get pulled out of your unit for. But if you make the WCAP team, that means that, okay, we have sights for you to actually make the Olympic team, so we're going to support you all the way there. So, yes, I was going for the 2004 Olympics, and I was fighting my way up the ladder and doing everything necessary.
And then your story of how that fell apart is insane. Can you walk us through what happened?
It was crazy. we just finished the World Team Trials in 2003, so we were getting ready for you take a little break off because it was summertime, and you start gearing back up for the next season to make the 2004 Olympics. So that's when everybody really was going to settle into their weight classes. You had the guys coming out that were ready, and you had guys that were, just preparing to get there. And so we had a little bit of a break. We had that break. I was doing some personal training on the side, and one of my clients didn't show up, so I just went to go and take and deposit like a check that I got, I don't know, from personal training or something. I was going to a bank. So I went to the bank, and as soon as I went to the bank, these guys came in shooting up. The first guy took a shot at me. I didn't see him. My back was turned, and I just saw everybody screaming and jumping down. So when he took a shot at me, I took a dive down to the ground. And when I took a dive down to the ground, they shot up a couple more. They didn't actually shoot anybody, but they did shoot several times. They jumped over the counter, stole some money. I mean, it seemed like eternity that I was down on the ground, but I think it was like 15 or 20 minutes. But after they end up stealing from the bank and getting everything and basically scaring everybody, I got up and my knee was completely just smashed. I landed on my knee because, in most banks, just
the hard, like marble floor.
Yes, and they had that like thin piece of carpet over it, but it's basically carpet on top concrete. So when I hit the ground, it split my knee open. My knee just swole like crazy, and I had to have a surgery. When I had the surgery, they botched the surgery. I had to have a second surgery, and with the second surgery, it was just it took away everything. Like I couldn't make it to the Olympics because I couldn't even walk, and I couldn't even try out. I mean, I couldn't even do the 2004 national championships or world team trials because my recovery time from the surgeries would have put me way past the time that I was needed to prepare for that next year.
And I imagine from early childhood, from high school time all the way college and your time in the Army, you had that one goal of making like the Summer Olympic Games. When did it transfer to go into the WWE?
At that time, when I had that surgery, when I had the first surgery, I think I was 6 months out of the national championship. So I was like, you know what? He's telling me that it's going to be a 6-month rehab, but I'm not the normal person. So I figured I was going to be ready in like 3 or 4 months and then still have a few months to train and get ready. Would I be 100%? No, but I don't think you're ever 100% going into any fight or wrestling match or anything like that. So I was still on the mental frame of saying, I'm going to make the team. And then like a month later, my knee just got really, really bad. Infection set in and everything. So I had to have emergency surgery again, which at that point, it put me like 3 months away from the tournament, and there's no way that I could do it. So I was just sitting on my couch one day, like praying to God, because I was like, man, I put 15 years into this, and then some idiots that come shooting up the bank end up taking all that away from me. Like, what do I do now? I mean, I have a college degree. I am in the service. I mean, so there's a lot of positives there in my life. But my ultimate goal was just snatched it away from me. So I was just sitting on the couch, and I was just kind of like praying and just figuring out what's going on. And then, man, out of the clear blue, I got a call from Gerald Briscoe. And he was like, phone rang. Hey, Bobby, this is Gerald Briscoe with World Wrestling Entertainment. I was like, huh? He goes, we saw you at the last deal, and Kurt Angle came to Olympic Training Center probably 6 months prior to this call, and me and him exchanged numbers and we kind of talked about it. He said, man, you got a good look. You might want to think about going to WWE. You know.
So that's just basically a way of saying you're hot, right? Like you got a good look.
I thought so. He still kind of gives me the look.
Yeah, Kurt Angle comes in, he's like, you're a sexy dude.
Yeah, you're sexy. Your body, oh. But he changed numbers, and I was a huge fan of Kurt at this time. I was a huge fan of him from wrestling, and amateur wrestling, and professional wrestling. So Briscoe was just like, hey, you know, we'd like to bring you up here and have you do a tryout because we're very interested in bringing you in. And when he told me that, when I had the call, I was actually sitting on my couch with a straight leg cast on. Like I hadn't walked in 2 months. before this call, and there was no way in hell I was going to tell him that.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, I'd love to. And he goes, all right, well, we need to get you here. Can you come like in a couple of weeks? And I was like, not like, I had to give every excuse in the world why I couldn't come in 2 weeks, because I couldn't even walk at that point.
Right. And what makes that even worse is when you get a phone call like that and you're dealing with somebody on the phone that you really want to talk to and you're excited. I don't know about you, but I'm a big pacer when I'm on phone calls like that. You being in the straight cast leg, you can't even pace around while you're on that phone call.
All I could do is sit up.
You can only sit so straight, but you wanted to pace around.
Yeah. So I mean, I sat and talked with him, and then I was like, let me see what I can do, because I still have to do some paperwork to get out of the service, because I was actually medically retiring at that point, because it was the Army doctors that had messed up my knee. So I was already in the process of getting out of the service. So I was like, well, I need some time. And he was like, oh, okay, well, just give me a call back and let me know the time frame, because we really need to get you up here. And, man, as soon as I hung up that phone, I went straight to rehab.
Wow.
And I was like, man, you guys got to get me ready. I've got to do something. So, I mean, it was like every
Was that ever something that was even in your mind to go be a wrestler, or just it happened out of the blue?
No, I was so tunnel focused at this time. I mean, there was nothing else. There was nothing else there. Yeah, I had a degree. Yeah, I was in the service. Yeah, I had all these things going for me. But it was when you're at the Olympic Training Center, there's nothing else that you think about. You eat, sleep, breathe your sport. It's all day long, every day. So there was nothing else. There was nothing else that I was thinking about. Even when Kurt came and asked me that, I was like, man, I would love to be with you, Kurt, in WWE. But I have to do this. So, I mean, I busted my ass for the next several weeks, and then I ended up going to the tryout, and I think I took my cast off the day before I went to the tryout. That was like the first day that I really took some steps before going. And then I ended up going to the tryout, and the rest is history, man. They saw me down there, and they were like, man, you're in great shape, and blah, 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 blah. We'd like to give you a contract to come and join us.
And now you've had such a storied career. You've been in the game for over 10 years, or 15 years, right? You've been wrestling for 15 years?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Crazy. Well, Bobby, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Have a happy Veterans Day. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Thank you.